Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
On this week's program, Senator Michelle Benson offers her view on how COVID-19 vaccinations should be prioritized, and Senator Steve Cwodzinski reflects on his years teaching government and history, plus highlights from the special session. Stay tuned for this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. This week, during the historic 7th special session, lawmakers approved and the governor signed a bill to provide $217 million in relief for small businesses while extending unemployment benefits for an additional 13 weeks.
$217 million, a little north of that. Back when I chaired the tax committee, I used to tell people, we don't print the money in the basement. We actually have to take it from somebody. So, we're all going to take the vote, and, maybe almost everybody is going to vote for this, and we're going to get nice emails from businesses saying thanks for helping out. But it's the taxpayers that are putting the money up to try and make a small effort at least to keep a bunch of our businesses whole here.
I also rise to get confident to our Minnesota families, workers, and small business that may have cultural and language barrier, that help is here for them. Although it's not the ultimate, but little help is better than nothing.
A staffing agency reached out to me. They are being contacted by companies that have never used staffing agencies to try to man work in the past, because their employees will not come back. A job that they had that was going to pay over $15 an hour, they called 200 people who are currently unemployed who refused to take that call. If we're going to get this economy really up and going again, we have to get people back to work in the industries that need workers.
If anybody is not paying attention, the frustration level is getting mammoth. I go around town to various stores to work on things, and people come up to me more than they ever have. Usually I'm invisible, suburban people, like they get so mad they almost call, but they're not there now. They're writing, they're calling, and they say, can't you do something? Can you do something? And it's been really frustrating to talk about that, because the way this is set up, there's not a lot we can do. We get to pass out some money today, which I'll mention. But one man told me yesterday, he said, it is so unfair that the governor is asking me to take one for the team when he has his housing and his health care and he has and his staff all has all that intact, and this man was worried about losing all of those things.
It's easy from the governor to sit in his governor's mansion and just say, well, let's close the businesses, close the restaurants down, and just do takeout and delivery. And if you're down here where he is, you can pull your phone out, you can pull up Uber Eats or DoorDash or dial your delivery number of your favorite restaurant and have a meal brought right to you in a few minutes. But out in rural Minnesota, where I'm from, that doesn't exist. And there are many businesses that have had to just close down completely with this shutdown. And this bill that the governor asked for right after shutting down our restaurants and our hospitality industry again is just cookie crumbs from the royal table. This is not a real solution.
I'm glad we're doing it, and this is, as I think Senator Anderson said, a lifeline for these businesses, something that may help them keep their heads above water. And as he mentioned, some of them aren't going to make it. Some of them have already gone under, and they won't be coming back, he said. And that's true. Unfortunately, those 4,500 Minnesotans who have died from this, they're not coming back either. And they matter too. I don't think there's a person in this room who doesn't know some people that they loved and cared about who haven't died from this.
We knew the spike was coming. We knew it last spring. We talked about it through the summer. We should have been ready for this without shutting down our local economies again. And we talk a lot about the business owners. These businesses, these businesses, these businesses. Who are these businesses? These businesses are your neighbors. They're the people you go to church with. They're the people that you coach youth sports with. They're the people, they're the parents of your kids' friends. They might be people you graduated high school with and knew your entire life. This is not about some faceless business. This is the people that we know in our community.
So we're looking at this bill today, which is important relief and important steps, and I am going to gladly support this bill. But I need to say, as others have, we need Congress to really step up in a meaningful way, because we do not have the ability with our budget to come anywhere near meeting the needs that are out there. We could support these businesses through these months until we can really get through the vaccine if Congress would step up. We're going to provide a little bridge, and hopefully that will happen. And then it is not necessary for everything to be on the backs of these small business owners. We can share this together.
As good as this bill is, and as much as this work is really important, opening our economy is the only way to long-term keep employers employing people and mortgages being paid and all of the things that we so much desire. Funds are limited. Regardless of what the feds send us, funds are limited. We will be in session in January. It will be our job to make good choices to help Minnesota's economy get back on its feet. I'm looking forward to leaving here tonight and coming back with all of you in January, refocused on building our economy and doing so as we start coming out of this pandemic.
How the COVID-19 vaccine will be distributed is the next challenge facing the state and the nation. I spoke with Senator Michelle Benson this week about the prioritization of the vaccine and getting kids back in school.
Distribution of the first COVID-19 vaccine is underway across the United States, including here in Minnesota. Healthcare workers and long-term care residents will be the first to receive the vaccine. As chair of the Health and Human Services Committee of the Senate, I assume you're pleased by this news.
Yes, vaccine rollout moving as quickly as it has. I mean, we're under a year from this novel virus to having vaccine being available to our healthcare workers. I think that is very good news. And Pfizer having this significant manufacturing capacity dedicated to this so that as soon as it got FDA approval, it could be rolled out. And I'm sure you've all heard about the smart crates they have that keep it at about 80 degrees below 0 centigrade in order to properly ship the vaccine, but they have sensors on it that send notice if the temperature drops. So much work has gone into this from so many quarters. And so a level of gratitude from all of us for the people who've done that, who delivered this vaccine.
Those now receiving the vaccine are on what's called the 1A list. The 1B list is other essential workers who include police, firefighters, corrections officers, transportation workers, those in food and agriculture, and teachers. Last week, you and some of your Republican House colleagues called a press conference urging that teachers be moved to the top of that 1B list. Why?
Because our elementary school students have suffered greatly, and yes, all of our students have, but in particular to safely get those children grade 5 and below back to school for their mental, physical, and emotional well-being, not to mention their academic progress. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about very much is the stress that this has put on moms. This isn't to denigrate dads in any way, but we're hearing story after story about moms who stepped back from work or quit all together to facilitate distance learning. And so the emotional toll it's taking on families, as much as, January through May, we were all excited and board game nights and things like that. I think people are getting fatigued, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to keep doing this for the long term. It's important that those students get to see their friends, and it's a way for us to start building trust. And we're not going to have kids vaccinated. The trials haven't even been completed for school-age children, but those teachers who feel they're at risk so they can safely go back to the classroom, those personnel who are in closest contact, paras, especially for special ed students who might need actual physical contact. We want to make sure that they feel safe going back to work.
Now, as you said, the vaccines are not yet approved for children, but assuming most teachers and staff receive the vaccination, then are schools essentially safe enough to reopen?
Well, there's a good amount of evidence that schools have been safe all along, especially for children age 10 and under. They have a very low transmission rate. We've seen studies from all over the world, and we're getting some data now from childcare centers and actually from private schools that indicates that's the case, that children, even if they pick it up somewhere, aren't likely to transfer it to another adult. And so that's why I think opening even before the vaccine is available would be a workable path. However, if the teachers need to feel a little more safe, and if we can get more staff in the classroom because they feel safe, then we're going to have more kids who are going to be able to safely go to school.
Now, many are talking about how the pandemic, coping with the pandemic, and the educational changes that have happened because of the pandemic are just exacerbating the disparities. So the educational disparities. So how would you like to see these vaccines rolled out for teachers? Which school districts should get first dibs?
In my opinion, it should be those schools who have been distanced the longest and have the highest disparities. And we should prioritize, obviously, staff that feel at risk within those districts. And let me say, I have heard great stories of kids who are just thriving in distance learning, and they went and got they're high school students, and they get their work done, and then they go get a part-time job. And there are people who are doing just great. There are people in my own family who are like, oh, I finished my work in 3 hours, so now I can go work on my hobby. That some people are handling it really well, but there are families where the kids are home alone. How can you do your schoolwork when you don't have an adult who can help you understand when you struggle with something? Children who are pre-reading, those parents have to take every single step with the child. And at least when you're a teacher, you can take the step with all of the children in the classroom and then help those who need some more support. And so, yes, distance learning works well for some. It doesn't work well for others, but we have been identified as a state with huge disparities, and we know that's getting worse. The significant number of children in the St. Paul School District who are receiving failing grades. The failing grade isn't about shaming. It's that they're not ready to move to the next step. If they're not ready to move to the next step, let's help them get there as fast as we can.
In the press conference, you said that teachers and staff would not be required to be vaccinated, that it would be voluntary. However, I did read in the AARP that employers do have a right to compel employees to receive a vaccination. Can a school district compel their teachers to do this?
We don't mandate vaccines, and so I know that there can be restrictions. For example, nurses who don't get the flu shot can be required to wear extra protective equipment or be restricted as to what patients they work on. And so I take medical procedures and medical decisions very seriously, and I think it should be based on informed consent, and it should be voluntary. And let's work on building trust instead of compelling people. The idea that in order to go to work, you have to take a shot in your arm that you don't understand or that you're not comfortable with seems antithetical to some pretty basic trust that needs to be built between an employer and employee.
Finally, in terms of the general population, how concerned are you about the issue of vaccine hesitancy? Are there enough Minnesotans willing to be vaccinated to bring the pandemic to a close as soon as possible? Or is, the effects of the pandemic, may they go on longer simply because there aren't enough people willing to get the vaccine?
Well, we'll get some herd immunity from people having been exposed, and the Department of Health hasn't really focused on herd immunity through exposure, but it will happen. And there's a threshold below herd immunity where the virus movement really slows down. I don't know what that threshold is for this virus, but it could be as low as 20%. Some have speculated 20%. But the hesitancy, we know that there are ethnic communities who have an inherent mistrust of the government wanting to vaccinate them. If you recall the Tuskegee experiments, that is a lingering mistrust. There are people in Native communities who don't trust. And so we need to be really cautious about shaming. The Somali community doesn't have a high compliance level with the measles vaccine because of the rumors of autism-related impacts. And so let's work on, again, building that trust. Those who want it, great, go get it, but don't condemn your neighbors because they're a little bit more cautious. And it's interesting, I just started reading a report about what happens if you get this vaccine and you already have immunity. And so we need to dig a little bit more deeply into that. I'm not sure that we need to spend vaccine on people who already have some level of immunity until, I think this is going to be sort of a seasonal shot. Maybe we need another round next year. So there's a lot to be said there, and I'll try to be concise. There are levels of impact before full-on herd immunity. That doesn't mean we don't keep working towards herd immunity, but that can happen through community exposure or vaccines. And we need to be respectful that historically there are communities that don't trust what they're being told about healthcare.
Senator Michelle Benson, I want to thank you for your time.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Senator Steve Cwodzinski spent more than 30 years in the classroom. I spoke with him this week about his teaching philosophy and his journey to the Minnesota Senate.
During your first career as a Government U.S. history teacher, before being elected to the Senate in 2016, you taught more than 12,000 students. Over the last year, with the coronavirus pandemic prompting people to question whether mandates are constitutional, with the lawsuits following the presidential election, with the rushed confirmation of the latest Supreme Court justice, have you wished that you were still in the classroom?
I don't think a day goes by when I don't wish I was still back in the classroom. I loved every minute of it. And I was lucky over the years to teach such incredible historical moments, Clarence Thomas hearings and the end of the Cold War and, Clinton's impeachment and the election of 2009, 9/11, Obama's, so many incredible experiences as a history government teacher. But boy, I tell you, Shannon, the last year would have really filled my curriculum. I don't think a day went by when I didn't pick up the morning paper and didn't go, wow, I wonder how I teach this. Kids came to class, and they still do. They're hungry. They want to know what's going on in their world, and they're looking to us to help them through this and figure it out. So I think I would have had a good time teaching this year. I might have struggled a little bit on some days with the balance of trying to teach both sides of the issue. There were some things that maybe would have been more difficult in the last 12 months and maybe would have been earlier in my career. And so anyways, but no, I loved it.
Now, you recently wrote a book about your life and experiences. It's called Beyond the Lesson Plan, and it's essentially your teaching philosophy. My sense is that you're the kind of teacher that really thrived from the energy that was in the classroom. And so I'm curious, if you were still in the classroom, how do you think you would have adjusted to a virtual learning environment? And what do you think this is having? What is the impact on especially today's high school kids?
Oh boy, history will judge the long-term consequences of COVID, but it is a pandemic, and my teaching style was sage on the stage and stand and deliver, and feeding off each other in a Socratic method of teaching style where the kids bounce questions off me, and it was a give and take type environment. And I'm not sure I would be very effective in a distant learning model, but kids are resilient, teachers are amazing. I think amazing things are still happening in our schools, but it's different, it's hard. I think the silver lining, I think the impact on kids will be interesting to see. I've been thinking a lot about like in the 30s and 40s, what teenagers, 1930s and 40s, what teenagers went through with the Great Depression and tyranny taking over on both sides of our oceans, and those kids went on to become the greatest generation. And that's how I feel about today's kids is that they're poised and potentially ready to become a second greatest generation. And maybe they needed this little bit of adversity to wake them up, to make them shine and become the incredible citizens that maybe that's how this all play out. And I think there's a silver lining I've been thinking about is the holistic child. I think we're gonna revisit the emotional and social needs of our youth. And the last 10 or 20 years, I think we've tried too hard to teach to the test, so to speak, and what content can we teach them? And we've lost touch of the arts and the joy of recess and all the things that make life worth living.
Apparently you were not a particularly good student, nor did you have a clear sense of what you wanted to be when you grew up. You write about how you almost died in a car accident, and surviving that experience really became a catalyst for your thirst for learning and experiences. What do you think would have happened had you not had that sort of near-death experience as such a young man?
I wouldn't have been a state senator. I know that. I probably would have, it was the mid 70s. I was growing up in a dying town, as many port towns on the Great Lakes were at that time. And a lot of us were driftless and joyless and searching for more out of our lives. And unfortunately, I had a transformative moment that I wouldn't wish on anybody, but I woke up in a hospital bed one day and said, it's that classic Talking Heads song, how did I get here? Where am I? It made me realize maybe I wasn't taking advantage of all the wonderful opportunities in my life. And, Mark Twain once said the two most important days in a person's life are the day they were born and the day they figured out why. And I think it took, for me, a car accident to figure out why I was born. And but look, most of us hopefully don't have to have such a horrific experience to wake them up and realize that they're filled with potential and hope and dreams and desires. And
So there's a chapter where you're encouraging readers to focus on the positive. And you write, quote, "A society that points out people's weaknesses is a society in decline." You go on to say that we're tearing down statues and memorials of the past. We're exposing the heroes of the past for their warts and wounds rather than for their patriotic service and sacrifice. How do you reconcile that view? For those who view the relics of the past through the racism and the sexism and the white supremacy that feel damaged from those relics. How do you reconcile those two views?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question of the age we live in right now. To talk a little bit about what you talked about earlier, I've been a huge proponent of focusing on people's strengths, not their weaknesses, and not name calling. My students for years used to complain about the name calling and the mudslinging of political campaigns, and why do we have to drag people through dirt in order to become enlightened? And why don't we just focus on the policies and the issues and the good things the candidate and the opponent and the incumbent have accomplished, rather than their weaknesses? And so when I used to give tours of the Capitol, or still do if I'm lucky enough to run across any group of children, I would take him to the Columbus statue, and I tell him what he did to the indigenous population, and do you think this statue should be removed? And the kids would go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'd point out, look at what he's looking at. And if you looked at the Columbus in a big picture, his statue was gazing at the Minnesota Justice Center. And I would ask the students, why do you think the artist, if they even was intentional, decided to place that statue looking, gazing, pondering upon the Justice Building? And I think I would tell the students at that point that, you know, I didn't get things right, Columbus might think, but future generations will. And then I take them to the Lindbergh Memorial, and I'd say, what do you think? Oh my God, it's a great memorial. It's a wonderful memorial. And then I talk about his anti-Semitic beliefs and his views on against FDR and some things like that. And I'd say, what do you think about removing this statue? And they'd be, yeah. And I'd say, well, then we're missing the point. You know, look at what he accomplished. Look at what Columbus did. He opened up the world to a part of the world that no one knew existed. Yes, warts and all. And Lindbergh said some horrible things about a group of people. And yet, both of them, what they had in common is they braved new worlds. And let's talk about what their accomplishments are. And so I've been trying to do that in my adult life with as colleagues in the Minnesota Senate, not trying to, you know, belittle them, or when they get knocked down, kicking them, and trying to figure out how we're all going to move this world forward. And we're going to move it forward by you know, focusing on what good is in the world and not what's bad. And although lessons to be learned, of course.
You describe your classroom, the classroom that you had for all of those years, as a museum, a monument to civic duty, civic virtue, and political efficacy. Yeah. You wrote that the walls and ceiling were covered with reminders to vote and participate and get involved to make a difference. So doesn't it just drive you nuts that the formality of the Senate does not allow props?
Yeah, you know, they're good attention getters. I mean, pointing out on my wall a quote or holding up some object from hanging chads from Florida and showing the students was an attention getter, and that we're not allowed to use them is interesting. But I'm not going to judge too harshly on the rules of the Senate. I remember when I first got elected, somebody, and I wished I could remember what senator it was, said, you know, we can't have coffee and we can't eat on the floor of the Senate. Would you be willing to vote to change that? And I thought, well, yeah, we should be able. And then my first minute in that hollow sacred chamber, and me looking around, and I thought, no, I don't think I'll ever eat or drink here. This place is pretty special. And so I could see both points of the prop question.
Senator Steve Cwodzinski, we're going to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for your time and your perspective.
Anytime, Shannon. Look, I hope I see you at the state fair this year.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Join us again next week as we delve into more topics affecting Minnesotans. I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thanks for watching.